Commander Jake Morrison stood at the large window of his office, looking out at the strange purple sky of Kepler 4 for to be. The twin suns were setting, making the alien landscape glow with orange and red colors. He had been on this planet for 3 years now, working as Earth's main diplomat in this part of the galaxy. Sometimes he still couldn't believe how far humans had come since joining the Galactic Federation 50 years ago. His assistant, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, walked into the office carrying a thick datapad. She looked tired, which was normal these days. The conflict between the Zephyrians and the Crystalline Collective was getting worse every week. Both sides kept asking for human help to solve their problems. "The morning reports are ready, sir," Amy said, placing the pad on Jake's desk. "The situation in the Vega system is getting bad, really bad." Jake turned away from the window and sat down at his desk. The reports always made him feel heavy inside. 2 powerful alien races fighting over who got to mine valuable crystals from a few planets. It seemed so simple, but wars were never really simple. "How many ships this time?" Jake asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. 12 Zephyrian mining vessels were attacked yesterday. The crystalline forces used some kind of new weapon that cuts right through their shields. Over 400 Zephyrians are dead. Amy's voice was quiet. She had been keeping track of the death counts for months now, and it was wearing on her. Jake rubbed his forehead. The Zephyrians were tall, thin aliens with blue skin and 4 arms. They were proud warriors who had built a huge empire across dozens of star systems. The Crystalline Collective were very different. They looked like living diamonds and could speak to each other through light patterns. Both races were much older than humans and had been fighting wars for thousands of years. "What does Ambassador Kethfer want us to do about it?" Jake asked. "The same thing he always wants. He wants us to take their side and help them fight. He says the Crystallines are murderers who don't deserve to live." Amy sat down in the chair across from Jake's desk. High Christarch Nexus Prime sent the same kind of message. They want us to help them destroy all Zephyrian military bases. Jake laughed, but there was no happiness in it. They still don't understand, do they? After 50 years, they still think we might change our minds and start fighting their wars for them. The Terran Conflict Resolution Protocol was very clear. Humans were not allowed to fight in wars between other species. Not ever. The law had been written after humans first joined the Galactic Federation, and every human in space had to follow it. Jake knew why the law existed, even if the aliens sometimes forgot. 50 years ago, when humans first traveled to the stars, they had been invited to help end a small war between 2 alien races. It was supposed to be a simple job, just help one side win quickly so the fighting would stop. But humans were too good at war. What should have taken months was over in 3 days. The human fleet had destroyed so many enemy ships that the losing side surrendered immediately. The problem was that humans didn't fight like other aliens. Most alien races fought wars the same way they had for thousands of years. They would line up their ships and blasted each other until one side ran out of ships or gave up. Humans were different. They used tricks and traps. They attacked from directions the enemy never expected. They were faster and smarter and much more dangerous than anyone had thought possible. After that first war, the other alien races got scared. They realized that if humans ever decided to conquer the galaxy, probably nobody could stop them, so they made a deal. Humans could join the Galactic Federation and have all the benefits of membership, but they could never fight in wars again. Humans had agreed because they wanted peace more than they wanted to fight. "Sir, there's something else," Amy said, interrupting Jake's thoughts. "Dr. Helen Parker sent a report from the Galactic Council meeting on Centauri Prime. She says this: war between the Zephyrians and Crystallines might spread to other systems. The Orion Trade Alliance is talking about helping the Zephyrians. If that happens, the Centauri Defense League might help the Crystallines." Jake felt a cold chill run down his back. If those 2 big alliances got involved, the war could spread across half the galaxy. Millions of innocent people could die, maybe billions. "What does Dr. Parker recommend?" Jake asked. "She wants to try one more round of peace talks." "But sir, I've been looking at the data. Both sides are too angry now. They've lost too many people. I don't think they want peace anymore. They want revenge. Jake stood up and walked back to the window. In the distance, he could see the landing pads where ships from dozens of different alien races came and went every day. Merchants, diplomats, tourists, refugees, all of them depending on humans to keep the peace in this part of the galaxy. Amy, send a message to Earth. Tell them we need more diplomatic staff out here. And ask them to send some of our best negotiators. If this war spreads, we're going to need all the help we can get. Yes, sir. Should I also request permission to contact the military, just in case? Jake was quiet for a long moment. He knew that back on Earth, human military forces were still training and preparing, even though they hadn't fought a real war. In 50 years, sometimes he wondered, what would happen if the galaxy really needed them again? No, Jake said finally. We solve this the way we always do, with words, not weapons. The galaxy made us promise to stay out of their wars, and we keep our promises. But as Jake watched the alien ships in the distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that words might not be enough this time. The Zephyrians and Crystallines were too angry, too hurt, too ready to fight, and if the war kept growing, eventually the whole galaxy might burn. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about something his grandfather had told him years ago. His grandfather had been a soldier in the old days before humans went to the stars. Sometimes the only way to save lives is to be ready to take them, his grandfather had said. The strongest person in the room is often the one who never has to prove it. Jake hoped his grandfather was right, hoped that keeping human warriors locked away was actually keeping the galaxy safe. But deep down, he was starting to worry that the galaxy's most dangerous enemies might not be other alien races. They might be war itself. 3 months had passed since the war began, and Captain Alex Turner could see the smoke rising from the planet below. His ship, the USS Harmony, floated in space above the burning world of Meridian Prime. The ship was painted white with red, crosses on the sides marking it as a medical and rescue vessel. But even neutral ships weren't safe anymore. Captain, we're getting another distress signal, said Chief Engineer Lisa Bennett from her station. It's coming from the northern continent. Sounds like a refugee camp got hit by bombing. Alex stared at the planet through the main viewing screen. Meridian Prime had been a beautiful world once, with green forests and blue oceans. Now it looked like a piece of burned metal floating in space. The war between the Zephyrians and Crystalline Collective had spread to 12 star systems. And everywhere it went, death followed. How many ships do we have available for rescue? Alex asked. Only 3, sir, said Medical Officer Dr. Ryan Clark. The others are still bringing survivors from the attack on New Geneva Colony. We've got over 2,000 refugees on board already. The ship wasn't designed to hold this many people. Alex nodded grimly. The attack on New Geneva had been the worst thing he had ever seen. 4 million people lived on that colony world. Families, children, old people who had never hurt anyone. The crystalline forces had used a weapon that turned the entire planet's atmosphere into poison gas. Everyone died in less than an hour. The Zephyrians had been just as bad. They had destroyed 3 crystalline worlds with planet-killer weapons, turning billions of living beings into dust. Alex had seen the recordings. Even now, weeks later, he still had nightmares about it. Sir, we're getting a transmission from Admiral Vexai, Lisa said. He wants to speak with you. Alex walked to the communications station. Admiral Vexai was the commander of the Galactic Federation's peacekeeping fleet. He was a Centaurian, which meant he looked like a giant blue octopus with silver eyes. Alex had worked with him before and respected him, but the Admiral was in over his head with this war. The holographic image of Admiral Vexia appeared on the screen. He looked tired and defeated. Captain Turner, I have bad news. We lost the Battle of Proxima Station. 60% of my fleet is gone. Alex felt sick. How many ships? 47 destroyed, 36 badly damaged. The Zephyrians had some kind of new weapon system we'd never seen before. Our ships weren't built for this kind of fighting. The Admiral's voice was filled with sadness. Captain, I'm pulling all Federation forces back to defensive positions. We can't fight this war. We're peacekeepers, not warriors. What about the civilians? Alex asked. There are millions of refugees trying to escape the fighting. Do what you can. But stay away from the combat zones. I've already lost too many good people." The Admiral's image flickered and disappeared. Alex stood quietly for a moment, thinking. The Galactic Federation had been created to keep peace between different alien races. Their ships were designed to break up small fights and rescue people in trouble. But this war was too big, too violent. The peacekeepers were like police officers trying to stop a volcano. Captain Dr. Clark said softly, "I've been reading the casualty reports. In 3 months, this war has killed more people than the last 50 years of small conflicts combined. If it keeps spreading, we could be looking at the end of galactic civilization."
Alex knew.
Dr. Clark was right. The war was spreading like a disease. The Orion Trade Alliance had officially joined the Zephyrians 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, the Centauri Defense League had announced they were supporting the Crystalline Collective. Now 27 star systems were burning and more joined the fighting every day. "Lisa, send a message to Earth," Alex said. "Tell them we need more medical ships out here, and tell them... ... He paused, knowing what he was about to say was dangerous. "Tell them that some of us are starting to think the Terran conflict resolution protocol might need to be reconsidered." Lisa's eyes went wide. "Sir, you know what happened to the last person who suggested that? Captain Williams got sent back to Earth and never got another command." "I know," Alex said. "But I also know that if this war continues, there might not be a galaxy left to protect." On Earth, President Elizabeth Stone sat in the Oval Office, reading reports that made her stomach turn. Her Chief of Staff, Director Paul Grant, had just finished briefing her on the latest developments in what the news was calling the Galactic War. "How bad is it really?" she asked. "Worse than we're telling the public," Paul said. "Our intelligence suggests that if the war continues at this rate, we could see the collapse of interstellar civilization within 5 years. The trade routes are breaking down. Refugee populations are overwhelming entire star systems. Both sides are using weapons that shouldn't exist." Elizabeth stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Washington, D.C. It was hard to believe that while people on Earth were living normal lives, the galaxy was tearing itself apart. "What are our options?" she asked. "Officially, none. The Terran Conflict Resolution Protocol is still in effect. We can provide humanitarian aid, medical support, and diplomatic assistance, but we cannot engage in military action."
Oh.
Paul paused. "Unofficially, the Joint Chiefs have been running computer simulations. They believe a small human fleet could end this war in less than a month, and the cost? That's the problem. The simulations show that human military intervention would be so effective that it would terrify every other species in the galaxy. They might decide that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to exist." Elizabeth felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. 50 years ago, humans had agreed to give up their right to make war in exchange for a place in the galactic community. It had seemed like a good deal at the time. Now, watching the galaxy burn, she wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. "Ma'am," Paul said quietly, "there's something else. We've been getting secret communications from some of the moderate Federation species, the Altarians, the Sirius Commonwealth, even some of the Centaurians. They're asking if we might consider limited intervention. They want us to break our own law. They want us to save the galaxy. There's a difference." Elizabeth sat back down at her desk. In front of her was a red phone that connected directly to the military command center. One call could mobilize the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. But it could also destroy the peace that humans had worked 50 years to build. "Not yet," she said finally. "But start preparing. This war gets any worse, we might not have a choice." That night, across the galaxy, Captain Alex Turner watched another refugee ship explode as it tried to escape the fighting. The ship had been full of families, children, people who just wanted to live in peace. Now they were all dead, he thought. About the human military ships that were waiting back on Earth. Ships that could protect the innocent and stop the killing. Ships that were forbidden to fight. For the first time in his life, Alex Turner began to wonder if some laws were meant to be broken. The war had been raging for 6 months now, and Dr. Helen Parker could barely recognize the galaxy she had known. standing in the observation deck of the Federation headquarters on Centauri Prime. She watched as another convoy of refugee ships limped into port. These ships were packed with survivors from the Kepler system, where both sides had fought a battle so terrible that 3 entire planets were now uninhabitable. "Dr. Parker, the emergency council meeting is starting," said her assistant. A young Altarian named Veltar, his usually bright purple skin had turned pale gray from stress. Even the aliens were starting to break under the pressure of this endless war. Helen walked into the council chamber where representatives from 43 different species were arguing loudly. The chamber that had once been a symbol of galactic peace now felt like a place where civilization came to die. On the big screen at the front, casualty numbers scrolled by in red letters. 50 million dead. The number kept growing every hour. Crystalline Collective has deployed biological weapons against civilian populations on 6 Zephyrian worlds, announced Counselor Thexan from the Rigel Confederation. Entire cities are dying from diseases that dissolve their bodies from the inside, and the Zephyrians have responded by using planet-killer missiles against crystalline mining colonies. "Duh," replied Ambassador Silvac from the Vega Alliance. "Day. Turn the Harmony system into a graveyard. 15 billion crystallines are dead." Helen listened to the reports and felt sick. Both sides had stopped caring about military targets. They just wanted to hurt each other as much as possible. Cities full of families were being destroyed just to make the enemy suffer. "We need to do something," shouted Counselor Metrel from the Sirius Commonwealth. "Our peacekeeping forces are useless against this level of violence. We need real military intervention."
From who?
Asked Ambassador Kreltath from the Proxima Union. "Every species with a strong military has already picked a side in this war. The only ones left are... The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew what he was going to say. The only military force left that hadn't joined the war was the one that wasn't. Allowed to fight? Helen stood up. As Earth's chief xenopsychologist, she had spent years studying how different alien species thought and behaved. Right now, she could see the fear in their eyes. "I've been studying the psychological profiles of both sides," she said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "The Zephyrians and Crystallines have moved beyond rational warfare. They're operating on pure emotion now. Hatred, revenge. The need to make their enemies suffer. This isn't a war anymore. It's mutual genocide." She pressed a button, and a holographic map appeared above the table. Red dots showed where fighting was happening. 6 months ago, there had been 12 red dots. Now there were over 200. At the current rate of expansion, this conflict will consume the entire galaxy within 18 months, Helen continued. Both sides are developing new weapons designed specifically to cause maximum civilian casualties. We're not just looking at the end of 2 civilizations. We're looking at the collapse of galactic society. In the back of the chamber, Ambassador Morrison sat quietly. Jake had come to Centauri Prime to brief the Council on his failed peace negotiations. Both the Zephyrians and Crystallines had rejected every proposal he made. They didn't want peace anymore. They wanted total victory or total death. "There's one option we haven't discussed," Jake said, standing up slowly. "The Terran Conflict Resolution Protocol includes a clause for emergency suspension in cases of galactic extinction-level events." The chamber erupted in shouting. Some representatives were terrified at the idea of humans entering the war. Others were desperate enough to try anything. "You cannot be serious," said Counselor Vexai from the Centauri Republic. "Do you remember what happened the last time humans fought a war? They ended it in 3 days. 3 days. What do you think they would do to civilizations that have been fighting for 6 months?" "Maybe that's exactly what we need," replied Ambassador Talrock from the Altarian Republic. "A force so overwhelming that both sides have no choice but to surrender." Meanwhile on Earth, President Elizabeth Stone was dealing with a crisis of her own. The Global Defense Council was split down the middle on whether to authorize military intervention. In the Pentagon, General Marcus King and Defense Secretary Patricia Wells were presenting their final analysis. "Ma'am, we've run every simulation. We can think of," General King said. "The results are always the same. Small human task force could end this war in 4 to 6 weeks. But the political consequences would last for generations. Explain, Elizabeth said. Defense Secretary Wells activated a holographic display. Human military technology has continued advancing during our 50 years of peace. Our ships are faster. Our weapons are more precise, and our tactical systems are far superior to anything currently being used in the war. The problem, General King continued, is that we would be too effective. Our analysis suggests that human intervention would be so swift and decisive that every other species in the galaxy would see us as an existential threat. Elizabeth studied the reports. The numbers were staggering. Human casualty projections for ending the Galactic War were less than 5,000 killed or wounded. Enemy casualties would be minimal because human weapons could disable ships without destroying them. The war could be ended with less loss of life than a single day of current fighting. But, she said slowly, they would never trust us again. The dilemma, Patricia agreed. We can save the galaxy, but the price might be eternal isolation. At that moment, Elizabeth's secure communicator buzzed. It was an emergency transmission from Captain Alex Turner, whose medical ship was in the middle of the war zone. Ma'am, I'm sending you real-time footage from the Battle of New Geneva 2. Alex's voice was strained with exhaustion. You need to see what's happening out here? The holographic display changed to show a space battle unlike anything Elizabeth had ever seen. Hundreds of ships were firing at each other with weapons that turned entire vessels into expanding balls of fire. But worse than the military ships were the civilian transports caught in the crossfire. Refugee ships full of families were being destroyed by both sides, sometimes deliberately. They're not even trying to avoid civilian targets anymore, Alex continued. I watched a Zephyrian battleship destroy a hospital ship that was clearly marked with medical symbols. When I asked their commander why, he said it might have been carrying crystalline wounded, so it was a legitimate target. Elizabeth felt her heart sink as she watched a school ship, a vessel designed to evacuate children from war zones, explode in a brilliant flash. Thousands of young lives ended in seconds. How many refugee ships have been destroyed this week? She asked quietly. Over 300, Alex replied. Ma'am, I've been out here for 6 months. I've seen things that will give me nightmares for the rest of my life. Both sides have stopped being civilized beings. They're monsters now, and they're creating more monsters every day. They continue fighting. Elizabeth closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked at General King and Defense Secretary Wells. If we intervene, can we do it without becoming the very thing they're afraid of? Yes, ma'am, General King said without hesitation. Our rules of engagement would focus on disabling enemy forces, not destroying them. We would target military installations and command structures while protecting civilian populations. It would be warfare designed to preserve life, not end it. After the war is over, we go home, Patricia said simply. We prove that humans can use overwhelming force responsibly. Maybe that's the only way they'll ever really trust us. Elizabeth walked to the window and looked out at the peaceful Earth. Sky. Somewhere up there, the galaxy was burning. Every hour she delayed her decision, thousands more innocent people died. Prepare for Operation Galactic Shield, she said finally. But I want every action reviewed, every target confirmed, and every engagement designed to minimize casualties. On all sides. If we're going to break our most sacred law, we're going to do it the right way. For the first time in 50 years, humanity was going to war again. The question was whether the galaxy would thank them or fear them when it was over. Admiral Christina Shaw stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching as her small fleet moved through hyperspace toward the war zone. 12 human ships against hundreds of alien vessels. On paper, it looked impossible. But Christina had studied the battle reports, and she knew something the aliens didn't understand. Humans didn't fight fair. Admiral, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system, reported her navigation officer, Lieutenant Commander Ben Harris. Long-range sensors are picking up massive fleet movements. Looks like both sides are gathering for another major battle. Christina nodded. The Zephyrians and Crystalline Collective had been building up their forces in the system for 2 weeks. Intelligence suggested they were planning the largest space battle in galactic history. Over 800 ships from both sides, We're preparing to fight with no regard for the 3 billion civilians living on the planets below. What's our status, Captain Turner? Christina asked. Alex Turner had transferred from his medical ship to serve as her tactical advisor. His experience in the war zone was invaluable, but she could see the strain in his eyes. 6 months of watching innocent people die had changed him. Both fleets are positioned exactly where our simulations predicted, Alex said. The Zephyrians have 400 ships on the left flank. The Crystallins have 412 on the right. They're planning to meet in the middle and fight until one side is completely destroyed, and the civilians, evacuating but slowly. At the current rate, maybe half the population will escape before the battle starts. The other half. Alex shrugged grimly. Christina had been preparing for this moment her entire career. As a young officer, she had studied every major battle in human history. She knew that the key to winning wars wasn't having the biggest army it was using. Your brain, instead of just your weapons. All ships. This is Admiral Shaw, she said into her communicator. Operation Galactic Shield is now active. Remember your training, remember your rules of engagement, and remember why we're here. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to save them from themselves. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the two alien armies. For a moment, both sides stopped shooting at each other and stared at the 12 small human ships that had appeared between them. This is Admiral Shaw of the Terran Fleet, Christina broadcast on all frequencies. Both fleets will power down weapons and withdraw from this system immediately. Any ship that fires on civilian targets will be disabled. This is your only warning. Response was immediate. Both alien fleets turned their weapons toward the humans and opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams and missiles filled space with deadly light, but the human ships were already moving. While alien vessels fought by lining up and trading shots, human ships danced through space like deadly angels. Their shields deflected incoming fire while their own weapons struck with surgical precision. Target the command ships first, Christina. Ordered, disable their weapons and engines, but don't destroy them unless you have no choice. The USS Defiant dove toward a massive Zephyrian battleship, dodging between its weapon turrets like a fighter jet flying through a thunderstorm. The alien ship was 10 times larger than the human vessel, but size didn't matter when you couldn't hit your target. Firing pulse torpedoes, reported weapons officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. Direct hit on their main weapon array. Their guns are offline. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships struck like lightning. The USS Ranger disabled 3 crystalline cruisers in less than 2 minutes. The USS Guardian flew right through the middle of an alien formation, knocking out their command systems without firing a single shot that could kill anyone. On the surface of Kepler-4 for 2B, Commander Jake Morrison watched the battle through his telescope. He had seen many things during his years as a diplomat, but he had never seen anything like this. The human ships moved with a grace and precision that seemed almost supernatural. Sir, we're getting reports from across the system. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez said, her voice filled with amazement. In the first hour of fighting, the human fleet has disabled over 60 alien ships. Our casualties? 0. Jake wasn't surprised. He had read the classified reports about human military development during their 50 years of peace. While other species had focused on building bigger guns and stronger armor, humans had developed smart weapons, advanced tactics, and ships that could think faster than their enemies. What's the alien response? Jake asked. Panic, mostly. Both sides are sending everything they have at the human ships, but they can't hit them. It's like trying to catch lightning with your bare hands. In space, Admiral Christina Shaw was proving why humans had been banned from warfare. Her 12 ships were systematically dismantling both alien fleets without destroying a single vessel completely. Every shot was calculated to disable, not kill. Every maneuver was designed to protect civilian areas while neutralizing military threats. Admiral, the Zephyrian flagship is requesting permission to speak with you, reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Mark Stevens. Put them through, Christina said. The holographic image of Commander Kethfer appeared on the bridge. The tall, blue-skinned alien looked confused and frightened. Human Admiral, what kind of weapons are you using? Our shields are useless against your attacks. We're using precisely the same energy output as your weapons. Commander, Christina replied calmly. The difference is that we know exactly where to hit you to disable your ship without killing your crew. Impossible. No one can be that accurate in the middle of a battle. Christina smiled. Commander, your species has been fighting wars the same way for 3,000 years. You line up your ships, point them at the enemy, and shoot until someone gives up. Humans learned long ago that the best way to win a fight is to end it quickly with the least possible harm to everyone involved. On the other side of the battle, Hyperstarch Nexus Prime was having similar difficulties understanding what was happening. The crystalline leadership had been disabled in the first 5 minutes of the battle, and now he was floating helplessly while human ships continued to systematically shut down his entire fleet. How are they doing this? Nix Prime asked his tactical officer. We outnumber them 60-1, yet they are defeating us without effort. Their ships move in ways that should not be possible, the tactical officer replied. Their weapons strike our weak points with perfect accuracy every time. It is as if they know our ships better than we do. That was exactly the case. Human intelligence had been studying alien ship designs for 50 years. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every system that could be disabled without causing casualties. What the aliens saw as impossible accuracy was actually just very good homework. Within 6 hours, the Battle of Kepler 442 was over. Both alien fleets were floating dead in space, their crews alive but their ships completely disabled. Not a single human vessel had been seriously damaged. All alien vessels, this is Admiral Shaw, Christina broadcast. Your weapons are offline and your engines are disabled. You will remain in position while we coordinate your safe return to your home systems. Any attempt to resume hostilities will result in the complete destruction of your fleets. There was no response from either side. Both the Zephyrians and Crystallines were too shocked to speak. On the planet below, Jake Morrison received a priority message from Earth. President Stone herself was calling. Commander Morrison, I need you to coordinate with the alien governments. Immediately, the president said. Admiral Shaw's fleet will continue operations throughout the war zone, but we need diplomatic contact with both sides. They need to understand that we're not trying to conquer them. We're trying to save them. Yes, ma'am, Jake replied. Ma'am, if I may ask, how are people on Earth reacting to this? President Stone was quiet for a moment. Mixed reactions, Commander. Some people are proud that we're finally doing something to stop the killing. Others are terrified that we've just proven every alien's worst fears about human military capabilities. Jake understood. In 6 hours, 12 human ships had done what the entire Galactic Federation couldn't do in 6 months of fighting. They had ended the largest space battle in alien history without killing a single enemy soldier. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The question was whether that was a good thing or a very dangerous thing. But as Jake watched rescue ships heading out to help the disabled alien vessels, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope for the first time since the war began. Nobody was dying. Maybe that was worth any price the galaxy might ask them to pay. 2 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, Admiral Christina Shaw stood in the same command center where the war had begun. But everything was different now. The screens that once showed burning worlds now displayed peaceful star systems. Emergency alerts had been replaced by supply ship schedules, carrying food and medicine to worlds that were healing. The war was over. Not because one side had won, but because neither side could continue fighting against humans. Final casualty report, Admiral, said Captain Alex Turner, handing her a datapad. Alex looked better than he had in months. The dark circles under his eyes were gone, and he could smile again without looking guilty about it. Christina read the numbers with amazement. In 8 weeks of human military operations, total casualties on all sides had been less than 3,000. It's mostly from accidents and a few alien commanders who had refused to surrender until their ships were completely disabled. Compare that to the 50 million who had died in the 6 months before humans entered the war. The Zephyrian Empire officially signed the peace treaty this morning, Alex continued. Christarch Nexus Prime will sign tomorrow. Both sides have agreed to return to their original borders and pay reparations for civilian damages. And the other alien species? Grateful, mostly? The Orion Trade Alliance and Centauri Defense League have both withdrawn from the conflict. Everyone seems eager to pretend they were never involved in the first place. Christina nodded. That was typical alien behavior. When humans did something that scared them, they preferred to act like it had never happened rather than deal with the implications. What about our own people? Any problems with the transition back to peacekeeping? None at all, Alex said with pride. Our troops have been working around the clock on humanitarian missions. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Baker's Marines have been helping rebuild civilian infrastructure on Meridian Prime. They've already restored power to 3 major cities. On Meridian Prime itself, Sergeant Katie Lewis was teaching alien children how to play baseball. The kids were a mix of different species: Zephyrian, Crystalline, Altarian, and others. Their parents watched nervously from a distance, still not sure what to make of human soldiers who carried medical supplies instead of weapons. Like this, Sergeant Katie, said a young Zephyrian girl named Velinara, swinging the bat with all 4 of her arms. That's right, but remember to keep your eyes on the ball, Katie said, laughing as the girl spun herself in a circle, trying to hit the pitch. Corporal Danny Foster walked over carrying a box of food rations. The supply ship just dropped off. Enough meals for the refugee camp, he told Katie. Plus some of those chocolate bars the kids like. Katie smiled. When she had joined the Marines, she had trained to fight alien enemies. She had never expected to spend her time teaching alien children games and making sure they had enough to eat. But this felt better than any victory in battle ever could.
Sergeant, can you teach us that song again?
Asked a small crystalline. A child whose body sparkled like a rainbow. Is the one about the stars? Of course, Katie said, sitting down in the grass while alien children gathered around her. She sang. She thought about how different this was from the war movies she had watched as a kid. Real victory wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about turning enemies into friends. Back on Earth, President Elizabeth Stone was dealing with the political aftermath of humanity's return to warfare. The Global Defense Council was meeting to discuss the future of human military policy, and the debate was intense. The intervention was a complete success, argued Defense Secretary Patricia Wells. We ended a galactic war, saved millions of lives, and proved that humans can use military force responsibly. I think we should consider revising the Terran conflict resolution protocol. Absolutely not, replied Senator John Mitchell from the Foreign Relations Committee. Do you have any idea how terrified the other species are right now? Half the galaxy thinks we're planning to conquer them next. Change our laws to allow military intervention. It will only confirm their fears. Elizabeth listened to the arguments while reading reports from across the galaxy. The reactions to human military intervention were mixed, just as she had expected. Some alien species were grateful that the war was over. Others were worried about what humans might do next. A few were already talking about forming defensive alliances to protect themselves from humanity. Ma'am, we have a communication from the Galactic Federation, announced her aide, Director Paul Grant. They want to discuss new protocols for emergency interventions. Elizabeth wasn't surprised. The aliens had learned that sometimes they needed human help, but they wanted to make sure it only happened when they asked for it. Put together a proposal for the Selective Intervention Protocol, she told her staff. Humans will only use military force when multiple species face extinction-level threats, and only with proper oversight from the Galactic Federation. We prove we can be trusted by accepting limits on our own power. On Kepler 44 to be, Commander. Jake Morrison was back in his diplomatic office, but his job had changed completely. Instead of trying to prevent wars, he was now helping alien civilizations understand how to avoid needing human military intervention in the future. The key is early communication. He explained to a group of alien ambassadors who had come to learn about human conflict resolution techniques. Most wars start because people stop talking to each other. If you can keep the conversation going, you can usually find a solution that nobody has to die for. Ambassador Kethfer, the same Zephyrian who had begged for human military support, months earlier raised one of his 4 hands. Commander Morrison, I must ask, how did your people become so effective at warfare while claiming to prefer peace? Jake thought carefully before answering. Because we learned that the best way to fight a war is to end it as quickly as possible with the least amount of suffering. We studied warfare not to become better killers, but to become better at stopping killing. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, now promoted to Commander Rodriguez, was working on a new project. She was creating a training program for alien military officers, teaching them human tactical principles focused on minimizing casualties and protecting civilians. The first rule, she explained to a class of mixed alien species, is that your goal should never be to destroy your enemy. Your goal should be to make them stop fighting. There's a big difference. A Centaurian officer raised a tentacle. How can you win without destroying the enemy's ability to fight? By making them choose to stop, Amy replied. Humans win wars by convincing the other side that continuing to fight will cost more than they're willing to pay. We don't destroy their ships, we disable them. We don't kill their soldiers, we capture them. We don't burn their cities, we protect them. When your enemy realizes that you're stronger than them, but you're not trying to hurt them, they usually decide that peace is a better option than war. Dr. Helen Parker had returned to her research. But now she was studying something new, how the human intervention had changed the psychology of the entire galaxy. The preliminary findings were fascinating. Fear can be a good thing, she wrote. In her report to the Galactic Federation, for 50 years, alien species feared what humans might do if they were allowed to fight wars. That fear was based on the assumption that humans would behave like other species trying to conquer and dominate. But the intervention showed that human military superiority comes with human moral restraint. Now that they've seen how humans actually fight wars, the galaxy's fear is being replaced by respect. As the months passed, something unexpected happened. Instead of forming alliances against humanity, alien species began asking for human advisors to help them resolve their own conflicts. The techniques that had ended the Galactic War so quickly could also prevent smaller wars from starting. Commander Morrison found himself busier than ever, traveling from system to system to help alien civilizations work out their problems before they turned violent. It was exhausting work, but it felt good to build peace instead of just maintaining it. One evening, as he watched the sunset from his office window, Amy Rodriguez joined him. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked. It's breaking our own law, Jake considered the question. 50 million people had died before humans intervened. Since the intervention, the galaxy had been more peaceful than it had been in decades. I think, he said slowly, that sometimes the most important laws are the ones we're willing to break for the right reasons. We prove that humans can be trusted with power because we're willing to give it up when the crisis is over. Amy nodded. Outside the window, alien ships from dozens of different species moved peacefully through the spaceport. Children who had grown up during the war were now playing together, learning that their differences didn't have to mean fighting. You know what I learned? Amy said. The reason it's illegal for humans to fight wars isn't because we're too dangerous. It's because we're too good at ending them. The galaxy needs to learn how to solve their own problems without always asking the strongest person in the room to fix everything. Jake smiled. That was exactly right. Humans had been banned from warfare. Not because they were monsters, but because they were so effective that everyone else had stopped trying to be better at peace.